Welcome back, ID60. So today we are going to be talking about architecture and interior design styles. And there are many, by the way, but we're going to go through 12 of them. And then you may be interested in some others that you want to do some research on later. But today we're really just going to look at these 12 and start to look at the similarities and differences of them. So that you can better serve your client when they're telling you that they want a particular style. Maybe you can hone them down a little bit, or maybe you see that they have a particular style and you want to bump it up. So the first one we're going to talk about is modern. So everybody says they want a modern space. Well, what is that? And maybe your definition will change after the next few slides. But modern is really about open floor plans and furniture that is relatively functional. So it's not over ornate. It could be curved and soft. It could be really straight and hard lined. But the overall idea is that it functions and then it's not overly ornate. So there could be a lot of industrial materials in a modern space, like glass, concrete, or steel. Again, they tend to be neutral colors. So it could be grays, beiges, whites. They may have bold accents as well. So modern, that's modern. But now what's contemporary? Because people tend to use contemporary and modern the same way. And when I flipped this slide and you saw this image, you were like, she's losing it, because that is not a contemporary space. Well, the idea about contemporary is that it is whatever is in vogue in that moment, right? So it's contemporary. So in the 60s, this was a very contemporary home. It was very up to date. It had all the right stylings in it. And so in the 60s, this was very contemporary. Now we're saying, not so much. Now maybe this is a little bit more contemporary, in that it reflects the current trends of this bold black and white. It's big, it's spacious, it has a lot of natural light. So contemporary is really whatever is popular at that moment. So it could be in the next few years. Back in the day, salmon was a color that everybody had in their house. It could be that that comes back and then this room starts to look dated. So really, contemporary is whatever the recent trends are. Minimalist is also sort of in this category. And minimalist is a little bit different from contemporary in that it really does feel super clean. So it tends to be white, open spaces with light woods. The furniture tends to be straight. It won't have curves in it. It could have soft edges, like what we're seeing in our image, but it does tend to be really clean. The materials are like light woods, stone. It's very open. It has a very clean, airy feeling. So there tends to be a lot of natural light. So I created a chart for you all because I know for me, these three styles often get interchanged in terms of when we're talking about them, but really they are their own category, especially contemporary, right? So you need to be really careful if someone tells you they want a contemporary space. What does that mean to them? So number 4, we have industrial. And I have to admit, most of these styles I really like. And industrial is one of them because I am a person who likes materials for what they are. So I love seeing exposed brick. I love seeing the iron and the metal and the light fixtures that are hanging. So industrial really embraces those industrial type materials. So concrete is a big one. Raw woods that haven't been finished and refined, even exposing of fixtures like the light bulbs. So it really is sort of looking at a thing for what it is and not trying to cover it up or hide it. A lot of times, like in these light fixtures, you'll see the mechanics of how things work, again, without trying to cover them up. But I think that's a beautiful space. I would live there. And then we have Scandinavian. I also like Scandinavian. It's very much like our, let me go back so I don't mess up, minimalist space. Except with Scandinavian, the emphasis is more on the warmth and the comfort and the home feeling of the space. It comes, or the word, let's see, hygge. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Hygge vibes is a Danish word that means cozy and well-being. And so that's the environment that Scandinavian design is trying to accomplish. So it may have warmer fabrics, like it may have nubby wools and velvets and linens and weaves. So things that are natural but sort of take on this idea of warmth and comfort. The color palettes tend to be warm oranges and reds. Yeah, I think I got it all. Mid-century modern, another one of my favorites. So mid-century modern is was born in the 50s and the 60s, and this is when we were really embracing nature, and it was really important to not only experience nature when you were outside, but also to bring it to the interior of the space. So one of the ways that architects and designers did that was to create these huge floor to ceiling windows with as little mullion as possible, so that the view of what was going on outside was super clear. So it was almost, you were almost in nature without being outside. So one of the key features of mid-century modern are these huge floor to ceiling windows and huge open spaces, so that again a lot of air would circulate and there was a lot of space to move around. Typically the architecture, again, because we're looking at embracing nature, there's a lot of woods, there's a lot of stones, a lot of natural materials, and also a lot of neutral tones, again, not to take away from the nature that's happening outside. So the nature was actually the art, and the architecture is just sort of embracing it and trying to fit into it in a mid-century modern space. So minimum clutter. These are homes that were also very lived in, and so people do have collections. So it also, I think, embraced art collections. It also embraced book collections, as we kind of see on this picture below. Another thing that mid-century modern did was bring us a bunch of iconic chairs. And so I am a chair, some people would say hoarder. My daughter tells me I'm a chair hoarder. I have a different chair. I don't have any two chairs alike. And then I have a whole garage full of chairs. I love them. And so these are some of my favorite, and they all come from the mid-century modern era. So we have the Ray and Charles Eames chair. This is the Womb chair by Saarinen. Mies van der Rohe. This is the Womb chair, I believe. Noguchi table. So if you have done history of interior design in our program yet, you'll get to learn about all these chairs and how they evolved in the mid-century modern movement. And then we have traditional interiors and architecture. And so this is basically inspired by the 18th and 19th century. So some of it is from France and some of it is from England. But typically how we describe it is very ornate. So there's a big emphasis on decorative woodwork in the architecture. So the crown moldings will be very decorative. The base moldings will be decorative. So this is a crown molding up here above the drapery. The stairwells are very decorative in their wood carving. The fireplaces. There will be a lot of wood coating on the walls called wainscot. And it, again, done in a decorative pattern. It could be that they use the wood grain to create decoration. So again, a lot of wood that is decoratively that is ornate. Let's see, furniture tends to be curvier when it's traditional. It may have a lot of fringe on it. Velvets are a traditional type of material. Can I tell you anything? Oh, florals are very traditional. Damask, which is sort of a shiny pattern, is very prevalent in traditional homes. I think I covered it. And then we have bohemian or boho. So boho is also a very interesting style in that it transcends a lot of different layers. Like you can do boho in different ways, but it's still considered boho. So in this case, it feels like sort of upscale, very clean bohemian design. The things that always you'll see is this idea of loving nature. So there will always be plants actually inside the house. Whereas with mid-century modern, there may have been a few plants in the house, but really they were admiring the exterior nature. Whereas boho really brings the nature inside with a lot of plants, a lot of natural wood materials, a lot of layers. So boho tends to have a lot of layers. So there'll be layers of light, which I see here in the shelves and around the cove, in the ceiling. So there's layers of light, there's layers of plants, there's different layers of wood. Like when I'm looking at the chairs, they're different, but the colors are the same. There's wicker, there's rattan. So again, there's layers. In this case, it's kept relatively simple because there's no color that's added to it. As opposed to, again, boho can be very happy, can make a space feel very happy because you can use a lot of colors. A lot of times people use fairy lights in a boho space. But again, what I will always see is this idea of plants and nature and wood in the space. So this would be considered boho as well. This time a little less formal and much more colorful. But then there's also a gloomy boho. So if you're someone who really likes a dark space, and I could this space, the ideas, the underlying ideas are the same in that it has a lot of plants, so they're bringing nature in, but there's nothing that's too matchy, like there are no sets. Every single chair is different, light fixtures are different, so it's very still for me relaxing to be in. It's not formal. Like typically formal spaces are symmetrical, like we talked about in the principles lecture, but things are very matchy, right? Whereas in boho, nothing really matches. And then we have ranch style homes. And so this is a lot of what happens in California. So these are typically single story houses with pitched roofs, meaning that they go up in a point. Excuse me, they're typically open to views, which is nice. They tend to have a natural color palette with some accents. There are some that have some Spanish revival in them, which I'm seeing a little bit up here in the table. The walls tend to be white. So it's sort of a neutral color palette. What else can I tell you? They do use a lot of sisal, exposed wood beams, clean lines. The furniture tends to be comfortable. So again, when you think about traditional furniture, it's more stiff. When you think about modern furniture, it's like super clean. So maybe you don't want to sit on it, because it's too perfect. Whereas in ranch style homes, it's really sort of livable. You can sit back, relax. So it feels comfortable and cozy. So here's another a Spanish revival, and now we're starting to see the arches. Also, again, the walls are for the most part white. They use a lot of wood, but now we're seeing the introduction of Spanish style tiles, which can be decorative. Sometimes they're just like orange terracotta. This is what I would consider more of a traditional Spanish revival, in that now I have these sort of hand troweled walls, and the arches are still deep and large, but the edges of them are more curved. So this one feels more traditional, more authentic. I have the wood beams that are happening above. I have the roof that's going up into a point, and I also have these heavy wood doors. So again, Spanish inspiration, and then I have sort of a really cool brick floor happening. I think this one is still Spanish revival, but mixing all of these kind of design elements. So I feel like we started out with sort of an inspired Spanish revival, and that they sort of took the look of it, but made it a more contemporary space. And then the last one we saw was very traditional. And this one I feel is sort of right in the middle. So it has the hand troweled walls and the darker wood furniture and finishes. So it feels right in the middle. And then this is a it's a styled Spanish revival tile that I've seen everywhere. So I know this is a relatively new space, but it's using that idea of the Spanish tile, even though it's a new one. And now, Craftsman. So I actually live in a Craftsman, so this obviously has to be one of my favorite styles. The bookcases and benches and woodwork are all super important. So this style is called Craftsman because it was really about the craftsmanship and the work that was being done. This is right off of the Industrial Revolution, where people were like tired of stuff that was just being put together really quickly. So the revolt of that was to really start paying attention to detail and how we were building things. And so the idea of craftsman architecture is not just that the woodwork is exposed, but how beautiful it can be put together. So tables and chairs, you'll see all of the joints. And so it's not just that the joints hold those things together, but also are really beautiful and part of the design and handcrafted. So built-ins, wood, exposed beams, fireplaces are a really big, important statement piece in a craftsman. The rooms tend to center around the living space because it's really about the gathering of family, around the fireplace. They tend to be earthy tones. Again, a lot of wood, simple, function, sturdy, all of those things that go with being a good craftsperson tend to be what happens in the architecture of a craftsman home. Craftsman furniture, I will say, is beautiful. It tends not to be that comfortable. So when you see a craftsman home, it typically will have either like a craftsman style furniture, like it's taking some of the styling cues, but typically craftsman, you'll see an eclectic furniture happening, which is what's happening here. It's Craftsman Kitchen. So again, really emphasizing the idea of super simple built-ins that function. Craftsman homes also have a lot of stained glass in them typically. So you'll see stained glass. And this is a really nice craftsman living area where you'll see the exposed wood beams, plaster ceilings, detailed windows. The next style, and I think this is our last one, is eclectic. And I may have said eclectic in the previous slides, and you guys were like, what is she talking about? Eclectic is a mix. So I may have a really traditional home, but the client style is not traditional. Maybe it's contemporary. So they're like, pull out the mullions, pull out this and pull out that. But as a designer, you're like, oh, it's so beautiful, for what it is. Let's honor the architecture, which I hope you all, once you have finished this class and maybe going to the interior design program, start to understand how designers react to architecture. And either they love it or they hate it, but what you do in this space should support the architecture of the building. So in this case, in this image, it's a super traditional crown molding. I assume it's original, so it's probably a super traditional home. But what the designer has done is really taken these contemporary art pieces and flanked them on the side of this traditional fireplace and given it a more updated and creative look, right? The wall is a little textured, probably not what would have happened in a traditional space. When I look at the furniture is still relatively traditional, maybe a little transitional, meaning it's going from traditional to contemporary. I wouldn't say modern, but it's, kind of in the middle. When I look at this one, obviously, again, another very traditional fireplace. And for the most part, the art is traditional, mirrors traditional, desk very traditional. But in order to create some interest, I've put in this very modern clear chair. Right. So now the space is really interesting. Had that been just a traditional chair, it would be go, okay, traditional room, what's the big deal? But now that this element of contemporary furniture has been put in, it's a little bit more interesting. And it also maybe creates a focal point. In this case, I'm not sure that it does because it's clear, and it almost makes me think this designer or this homeowner wanted me to see the desk. So that's why the chair is clear, so that I have a view of the desk through the chair. If eclectic is not necessarily your thing, you don't know how to make it work, having all of these different styles and putting them together, creating a monochromatic color palette is ideal. So monochromatic meaning that there's just one color for the most part in the room, and it can range from darks to lights. But you may have a myriad of styles, a myriad of shapes. But if they're all the same color or in the same hue, then they will work together. Or you can just go for it. Like, I think this is great. So, a lot of times, homeowners that have eclectic spaces are collectors. So they go to flea markets and they, purchase all these just really cool, unique things, but they're just one offs. So, how do you start to create almost a gallery space for your client? So, in this case, I think it's really well done in that the space itself is just white. So, the architecture is not taking any attention, but all the books on the shelves, this big mirror, the chairs, all of the intricate details of the space are really what's showing up, and the white walls are acting basically as a canvas for them. So eclectic spaces can range again from like these sort of dark, moody, sort of almost hiding the eclectic shapes and collections, to really supporting them and putting them out there as art. So that is it for furniture styles. So we are going on to our next assignment. So I will see you there. Bye.